Hey there, it's Patrick Franco. We're going to look at Paschimottanasana, which you may know of as a seated forward fold. And that's exactly what this posture is. It's a seated forward fold, which also could sometimes be referred to as a seated forward extension. It's an extension of the front of the spine, and at the end of that, we let the head go, which brings it into this category of forward folds, which are deeply nurturing and quieting and introspective for not only the nervous system, but also for the mind. You'll typically see this type of pose towards the end of a class in preparation for Shavasana, which is final relaxation. So Paschimottanasana does many things, but one thing it does is it definitely stretches the body more than it does strengthen the body. And in fact, it stretches the backs of the legs, specifically the hamstrings and the calves, as well as the entirety of the spine and back. Now, there is a moment of strengthening in this posture. It's before you actually extend forward and relax. So when you're sitting upright, when you extend the arms overhead to get the maximum amount of length in the spine before you go into the forward fold, your abdominal muscles are strengthening, your hip stabilizing muscles are strengthening, as well as the spinal muscles are strengthening. So it does have those components of strengthening before you actually move into the final position, in which case you'll get more stretch than strength. So let's go ahead and get started. And like most of these seated poses, we're gonna start in Dandasana, which is staff pose. So here we are, Dandasana, staff pose, the legs fully extended. I can bring my hands by my side. Now, Paschimottanasana is quite simply a forward extension from Dandasana. I am going to draw the buttocks flesh back so that I'm more on the back of my hamstring as opposed to allowing my buttocks bones where the hamstring's attached to sometimes get stuck underneath, and then you don't really stretch the belly of the hamstrings. So I drew the buttocks flesh back a little bit, and you can do it once or twice and draw those buttock bones back so that I'm mainly on the belly of my hamstrings. Now, my feet are together, specifically my inner heels and my big toes. My legs are completely straight. Obviously, this is dependent on how flexible someone is, if they're able to fully straighten their legs. In order to come into this pose, it's useful to have this extension first of the front of the spine before we actually let go into the forward fold. So I'm going to use my arms and I'm going to lift them up. And the lifting up of the arms, as in most cases, helps extend the spine. The front of the spine, the side of the spine, and the back of the spine. And I do this on an inhale. On the exhalation, I'm going to come forward, and I'm going to grab the tops of my feet first, if it's available to me. You can also grab the outer edges of the feet. You can even grab the big toes. I'm going to grab the tops of my feet. Once you get here, it is useful to get one more moment of extension. So I'm going to inhale and lengthen the front of my spine as much as I can. My legs are engaged and stay nice and straight. And then as I breathe out, I'm gonna let my abdomen draw back and out of the way. And as I do, now I can bend my elbows and let my head relax. On the inhales, I lengthen. On the exhales, I release any tension or gripping into this forward fold shape. That's the classic version of Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. The most common mistake I see with this pose is that students are unable to sit comfortably on the floor, and yet they try to do this pose from the floor. So with most seated forward folds, the best thing to do is to lift the seat a little bit, either with one or two blankets. And by doing that, you'll have the best chance to create the most amount of space for your seated forward fold. So number one mistake that we find in Paschimottanasana is not sitting up. So I'm going to sit up on two blankets. And I have them here. And you'll see this set up for many, many seated forward folds to sit up on 1 or 2 blankets just like this. I'm going to put these behind me. I'm going to sit up. I will start in Dandasana. Now, I sat up on a couple blankets. This lifts my hips, which allows more space for my legs to relax and more space for my spine. But let's just point out a couple of other things we can do. If it's uncomfortable to bring the feet fully together, we can separate the feet hip distance. If we can't fully reach the feet, we can also bend the knees a little bit. Last thing we can also do if we can't reach the feet is to use a strap around the feet. So we always have those options available to us. Widen the feet, bend the knees, and even use the strap. But I still think the number one starting point for most students is to raise the seat. So we're sitting up, legs extend. Now we'll lift the arms, lift the chest, and then I will exhale, come forward, grab the tops of the feet. I have the opportunity again. Inhale, lengthen the front of the chest. On the exhale, I can bend my elbows and let my head go. Notice the inseams of my legs, my big toe knuckles are extending forward and the pinky toes are drawing back. All right, there we have it. Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. We'll see you in the next pose.